Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don Helbig alongside Ryan Suhr. And Ryan, it's the holiday season. How's the Christmas shopping going for
You
you?
know, Don, it is theme park holiday season, as I titled this episode, which now that I'm saying it out loud doesn't make any sense. But hey, Christmas shopping is going about as well as it normally does for me, which means that a lot of my Amazon orders are now arriving. How's it going for you?
The same thing. I was thinking the other day that, the days of, whether it was Black Friday or whatever, of fighting the crowds in the malls and that, that's behind us. And everything comes through Amazon.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. And it's funny because they always say that in retail, like you can always tell the health of certain companies based on how early they start Christmas because they desperately need the Christmas season to be very successful. So, if you still got a Sears near you, they might have started Christmas on the 4th of July for all you know. But I think regardless, it's happening earlier and earlier every year. I think you can agree with that too, can't you?
Oh, yeah, it does happen earlier and earlier every year. But, it's just a fun time of the year that, the Christmas season for me. It always has been. I'm sure it has been, for you too. But, if you're listening to us here, just, reminder, follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP and search for the Attractions Group podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast apps.
That's right. Yeah, we're rocking the YouTube. We are going to try to go live in a couple weeks. We're going to have more information on that coming up. So definitely follow us on the YouTubes. That's going to be where it's at. All right, Don, it's theme park holiday season. I'm so excited about it. I love the Christmas season at theme parks because it is the entertainment side of theme parks at their best for the most part. So, one thing that I've been doing through different assets of ours is I've been pulling our listeners and our followers and asking them what are their favorite activities with these theme park Christmas events and so on. And it looks like it's pretty much been a tie between shows and rides. For you, what's your favorite part of the Christmas holiday season at theme parks?
For me, it's always been the atmosphere, just being able to, walk into a park and, just get caught up in the magic of the season. I think that's always been the number one thing for me, the lights, the sights, the shows, that part of it. The rides for me rank near the bottom for these Christmas events, holiday events at, theme parks around the country. Very much into the shows. The food too is a big piece of it for me too, because it's an opportunity to enjoy some dining options that you're not going to see any other time of the
I
year.
agree. I agree. I would say for me, it's definitely the shows, the Christmas light displays, especially now that they're getting bigger and better and more complicated, are definitely like a highlight for me. So it's definitely my favorite time of year at the parks. I love rides, but the fact that this is not a ride focused thing, I think weighs so much more heavily on everything else that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, it's the atmosphere, just that, being caught up in the spirit of the season. But for Ryan, for you, what's one thing that you think every park should have when they're hosting one of these winter events like this?
I was thinking about that. And the number one thing, I'm just gonna go ahead and knock it off, is a big giant Christmas tree. Some of them are hundreds of feet tall, some of them are 50 feet tall, but they've got, the different elements and stuff that make them a little bit more than just a Christmas tree. I would say definitely that. I would put up on that pedestal, when we're talking about the Mount Rushmore of options, ice skating is very, very important. Innovative Christmas light displays and obviously, shows. You know,
And for you, where do the rides come in for you?
the rides are irrelevant. If I was gonna go to, Holiday in the Park with Six Flags or Kennywood or something like that, for their Christmas displays, I if a ride was open, I would probably ride it, but it wouldn't be a make or break for me at all. What about you?
It's not important, I mean, it's a nice little bonus to have if you wanna hop on a couple of things, but I think the kind of rides that I like to see at the Christmas events, the holiday events, however you wanna title those, is rides like a carousel, a train ride, a dark ride. I like those. But I can remember, going back to 1982. It's hard to believe we're 40 years
Mhm.
ago. When the Christmas events, debuted. The first one was Winterfest at Kings Island, and it wasn't 20 rides like you see today. I mean, there was two or three. You had the carousel, you had the train ride was open, and you had the dark ride,
Right.
and that was
Mhm.
it. But you didn't go for that. You went for the food, you went for the shows, you went for ice skating, and that's the way it was, and that's the way we liked it. It was fun back then, and it still is. But they're much more immersive now. When you add in all the rides than it was 40 years ago.
Yeah, and, I mean, let me I've always wondered your opinion on this. So if you live in a climate where sometimes it's warm enough, sometimes it's not for the rides, like, in your personal opinion, would you err on the side of caution and just have fewer rides, so on those few busy Saturdays when you can't run many rides, there's less disappointment since you're drawing people for shows rather than rides and so on? Like, do you understand what I'm asking?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's the way you should go, because if you do try to run a lot of the major roller coasters, when you're in, like, say, the
Mhm.
Midwest, it's so unpredictable. If you're on the West Coast or, something like that where it's, 70 degrees most of November, December, you're fine. You're not going to run into many problems there. But if you're in the Midwest, um, you really don't want to put out there on your list of rides, these major roller
Yeah.
coasters, especially the steel roller coasters or wooden roller coasters that have, some of the steep drops and valleys and, things like that. Um, because there's going to be a lot of days where it can't go. And, you look at the app or you look at the website and you say, oh, let's go ride this roller coaster. You get there and it's closed because it's 36 degrees. You can't run it. So I think it's better to not set up guests for disappointment and have a smaller listing of rides. The ones that for the most part, can run on just about every night that you're gonna be open.
Yeah, and, here's another observation that I had. So you and I were down in Orlando a couple weeks ago, and we both got to visit, Universal Orlando. And, I mean, we made our feelings very clear on them. I mean, most of what they do is top notch, absolutely. But I ran into, an individual that we both know, and I'm not going to name names or companies, that works in, creative for one of the big chains of theme parks. And he happened to just be down there visiting, and he was like, "Can you believe how little they do for Christmas? Like, our parks do way more than this." And it's like, "Yeah, I never even noted." But the thing, though, is all the rides are open, so they put a Christmas overlay on it, and that is good enough. I mean, it's absolutely a great event, but it's not a completely transformative thing. You're not getting a completely different product in December than you were in, July. And while I feel like seasonal parks and stuff have to do that, they have to offer things that are completely different, different shows, you know, um, different food offerings and so on. So I thought that was a really big observation. I think that our disadvantage actually works out to be an advantage if you're looking for a product that is more diverse, and that's what I'm looking for personally.
Well, I mean, it feels more like, the holiday season when you go to a lot of these parks in the Midwest that have, these events, during November and December because, number 1, you expect it to be cold
Right.
those times of year. So when you do go to the parks, it does feel like the season. And when you're in Orlando, California, and you're not from there, it doesn't necessarily feel like the holiday season because of the temperature. So I think that plays a lot into it too, in terms of the vibe for the
I've noticed
events
that with
is
Halloween as
is is the
well.
climate.
Like, so I've been to like Halloween Horror Nights, and actually Orlando has a bunch
Yeah.
of different haunted houses that are open year round. And even here in the Cincinnati region, if it's too early in the season, sometimes it could be 86 degrees and you're going through a haunted house. It does not feel like Halloween, but you and I, both living around here, are pretty conditioned for that too. So I guess if you're from there or have lived there for a long time, you just know that it can be 90 on Christmas, you know?
Yeah, it just feels more authentic, more genuine when you do have that 30, 40-degree weather, in November and December when you're going to these
Yeah,
events.
and it's funny because it's almost like perfect, in some cases. Like it can definitely get too cold. Um, but on those days when, it's 48 degrees or whatever, especially after the sun goes down, I mean, they're you're elbow to elbow and you locally at Kings Island and Festival of Lights at the Cincinnati Zoo, because people want to have these holiday experiences, but they also don't want to be freezing, So I know that like at the Cincinnati Zoo, uh, 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 like I'm just hoping that next Monday I'm planning to go there for their Festival of Lights, and I just hope that it's not good weather because I hear all these stories of 3-hour backups and stuff. I guess if they don't have the infrastructure to support 35,000 people at a time, then, that's what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a sweet zone somewhere between like 38 and 45 degrees where it feels like Christmas. It's not too warm, but it's not so cold that it's uncomfortable. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, but, the colder it is, and it's all part of the experience, Ryan.
That is true. So actually, Don, I want to point something out here that I meant to do at the top of the show, but you said it's all part of the experience. Here's a splash screen. Do you recognize the house in the background?
Yeah,
What is it?
it's like the
It
Griswold
is the
house.
Griswold house, yeah. So for you audio listeners, I've got a couple evergreen trees in front of a pretty obscured Griswold house with all the lights on it and stuff because that's Don's favorite Christmas movie, or at least presumably with how much you quote it.
I would love to do my house up like that, um, but my wife won't have it. She's like, "We're not gonna be that house in the neighborhood."
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I mean, there's several houses now, but I remember there was one in particular near where I grew up, that did I mean, it wasn't necessarily like that. It was actually probably more distasteful. It had more stuff in the yard and so on. But there were like cars would park and walk up and take pictures of it and stuff. Like it would be fun to do the lights and design the lights and stuff, but it would be terrible to have people taking pictures of your house every night, you know?
Yeah, it would, and you do see that. I can drive through my neighborhood, and you do see people that do pull over on the
Right.
road. They're taking pictures of it and all that, so, yeah, that would be a little bit, something I wouldn't be real comfortable with people shooting pictures of my house.
Right. I mean, like, I wouldn't care about people taking pictures of my house, but, just if I'm in the windows or whatever, things on the internet of me and my family sitting there eating dinner or whatever, that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed, especially over the past 5 or 6 years, now that like theme park holiday events have like really come full circle and almost everybody has them, is that technology from like a show standpoint, like show at lowercase s, so not necessarily live shows, but show as in what the spectacle of what you're seeing is playing like a much bigger uh aspect in this. From a technological standpoint, what's your favorite thing that you've seen that really kind of still kind of tickles you and makes you excited, you want to show off to people?
I think when you're talking about technology, and you and I have had this discussion before, but, the pixel mapping, really plays well, for a holiday event. So to me, that would be the top of mind with that. What about you, Ryan?
I definitely agree with the pixel mapping, and let me lay that out for those of you who don't know. So pixel mapping is when each light on a strand is individually addressed, so you can make patterns and stuff with the lights and so on. Everything is driven by software. It's at the time, it's what the ironic part about it though is that the strands are not expensive. You can get them on Amazon for like $11 a strand, which I guess is expensive for Christmas lights. But hear me out. The software, on the other hand, is it charges you basis on the universes. So if you've got a really big Christmas tree, like if you've got like a 300 footer or something, which some do, um, that license for that software is like tens of thousands of dollars. But where else are you gonna go? There's only a handful of softwares that can do it. But for me, I would say that another example is time code. Now, time code has existed for quite a while, and it's definitely not unique to Christmas. However, with the importance of live shows, I think that the display aspect of having the smart lights going and the lights changing color and so on, far beyond what an individual human could do, is definitely playing a big factor in this. So that's my thought with the contribution. You also can make
Yeah, I get asked too, Ryan. People know that I was around as a guest back in '82, 40 years ago
yeah.
again, when Kings Island debuted Winterfest. But they ask what's the biggest difference between then and now, other than you have more things open, and it's the technology. I mean, that's definitely changed that event. There wasn't a lot of colors, with the
Oh,
lights back then in 1982. You go all the pictures, and it was just kind of one color lighting on the tower, one color, up and down the streets and on the trees and
mhm.
everything. So really the technology over the past, like really the last, 5 to 10 years, it's really taken off. But even going back to, like 40 years ago, I mean, it looks, when you look at those pictures now, I mean, no
Oh,
comparison
no.
to what you would have seen at parks in the 80s to what you see today and what everybody's able to do with the technology.
Yeah, and what's funny is, I always had this rose color memory of the 2005, I wanna say Winterfest, right? That was that the year it came back or 2004? Okay,
Hmm.
2005.
2005.
So, there was a show that they called Illuminations, not to be confused with Illuminations at Epcot. This is not the same thing. But it was on, a pond, and it had lights that danced to the music, and I remember just my mind being absolutely blown by this. Um, and even now, like, with the new iteration of Winterfest, which is, 6 years old or 7 years old, and they took a year off during COVID and so on. Um, I my thought was always, "This is so much better, but I just wish they had something like that." And finally, like, 6 months ago, I came across a YouTube video of that show, and I watched it, and I was like, I wouldn't even turn my head to look at this in today's world, just because everything is so much better now. These don't change colors, they flicker. They go to the music, which was cool, and there was pyro at the end. I would love to pitch that idea to you because that's cool. But yeah, everything is so much better and so much bigger, because Christmas is the number one spending season. Probably not in theme parks necessarily, but from a retail standpoint, it's definitely the biggest still, and lots of opportunity in the parks with that, I would say.
Yeah, and the other night you're talking about technology and, kind of referring back to, you saying that, what you saw in 2005 to what you see today. But even, I was watching Rudolph was
Mhm.
on, and, just how that was, back in what, 1964, I think is when it came out. And just thinking while I'm watching that with the technology and everything that's out there today, what would that show look like if they made it today instead of back in
Would
1964?
that be better or worse, though? Because if they made it with CGI, would it have the same charm?
For me, it wouldn't.
I agree.
But, for a lot of people, who were, born 1990 later or something, um, it might appeal to them more. So who
Right,
knows?
yeah.
But I guess it depends on what
Yeah,
area you're
yeah, I
born
mean, it
in.
depends on whose pocket you're shopping out of because, I mean, I saw Toy Story 4 in theaters a couple years ago when it came out, and that looked so good that at first, I was like, "Is this like a claymation thing? Like, are they moving the" but no, it's all CGI, but it looks perfect, but, sometimes in imperfection, there's an instant nostalgia, you know? I don't know. I think we're going off on a tangent because we're here to talk about theme parks, not television
Well, let's
specials.
go let's go back to theme parks and, Ryan, you've gone to a number of these Christmas events now. If there's one thing about these events that you would change or alter, what would it be?
Um, so I'm going to say this, and it's going to be counter to what I said before, but I would say more things done with rides. And by that I mean, if you've got a dark ride, I would love to see like an immersive Christmas overlay, simply because it does create a completely different experience than if you were to visit in September. Um, like I said, I'm not interested in riding your Giga Coaster during your Christmas events. But, for the rides that are open, to make them unique and special, I always thought that that would be really cool. I know some parks for, like, their Halloween events put, like, fog machines and stuff out on the course of, like, roller coasters, so that's kinda fun, so come up with stuff like that for rides. What do you think?
Well, I think we're on the same page there with rides that you could, transform them a little bit more to be more holiday themed. I know some of them changed the names and that of some rides, but you could make it, especially a dark ride, as you mentioned, more immersive, more tied into the theme of the event. We're going to go back to the 80s again with Winterfest at Kings
Mhm.
Island. When they had the Smurfs Enchanted Voyage, they did put some like Santa caps and things like that, in there for it, and add a little bit to the experience with that. Um, but I think, maybe even for me, maybe some more, go a little bit deeper. Some parks don't go as deep as I'd like to see with the dining options.
Yeah.
They don't bring out more of the seasonal stuff. It's still a lot of the same things that you get, any other time of the
Mhm.
year. So maybe I'd like to see a little bit deeper selection of menu items there that are more themed to the season.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And if we're gonna talk about what we would add, let me talk about something I would subtract. So one thing that gets kind of on my nerves, and it seems like every park does it, is they rename everything in the park to be Christmas themed. And that's adorable, but it's also confusing. You know, if you have a restaurant and you completely gut out what it offers and offer like completely different food or whatever, then I understand that because it's a completely different offering. But, if you've got, Prancer's pancakes or whatever that serves the same stuff during the summer, it's just kind of like you're trying a little hard there, buddy, and you're making the park map harder to read because a lot of
Right.
people use waypoints when it comes to navigating park maps. It's like, um, all right, where's this ride? Okay, you make a ride at the pizza stand. Well, if the pizza stand changed names for no reason, you're making it really difficult for people like that. You know.
Yeah, and I go back to the food items. Like, want to see a little bit deeper selection or more seasonal themed food items. We were at, like we talked about,
Hmm.
Orlando. With Universal and the Christmas event there, and getting to experience that. Pretty much the same menu at a lot of the food locations throughout the park that you would get any other time of the year. It was all good. Don't get me wrong there with that, but I would have liked to seen some things that were more like like turkey and meatloaf. There's just some different things to mix it up that I wouldn't be able to get there in July. Just something I'd had to go there in November, December, or I don't get to try these
Let me
items.
ask you this. So this is a conundrum I've always thought about. So
It's a big word for you.
yeah, and I'm hoping I'm using it correctly, but probably not. Um, so when we talk about Universal, Disney, SeaWorld, and so on, the destination parks that you may visit once in your life, do you think that there's a certain resistance to holiday stuff? I mean, especially Universal because um, I my whole life I've wanted to ride the Incredible Hulk coaster. And it's like, I wanna see it in its purest form when I ride it for the first time. I don't wanna see the Incredible Hulk with Santa Claus hats or anything like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, there's something to
I
that for
I think
sure.
so,
I mean,
but
there's
it's
definitely
funny
something
because
to
you would
that.
think Disney of all places, um, would be like because remember, when like they can't mess with that castle apparently. Surprisingly, the 50th stuff went really well, but when they turned the castle into like a giant, cake and or the time when Stitch, from Lilo and Stitch, like, vandalized it as a publicity stunt, and all they got was a ton of complaints of people saying, like, "I've saved up my whole life to take my picture in front of this castle, and it looks like a freaking cupcake now." Like, I'm surprised that Disney goes as far into Christmas as they do, um, because, because if somebody goes on vacation there and I don't know, I'm almost talking myself out of it because I don't know if people go there particularly for Christmas or if they go there because Christmas is a good time for their schedules. You know what I mean? Like that week between Christmas and New Year's is always like booked out for all the parks because everybody's off school and work, you know?
Yeah, for me, it was always when my family would go down uh, during the Christmas break. It was always to experience the park as a Christmas event more so than as Disney or as
But was
Universal.
that your first ever visit though? That's my thought.
No, it was not. It was not. So I mean, if it is your first ever visit, yeah, I mean that's going to definitely play into it a little bit there. But it was something that we had gone during the summer months, and then we wanted to start going during the winter months, and to try out the different events that they have. And so we started going specifically to experience it as during the Halloween season, or experience it as a Christmas event. So we were looking for it to be more of that than what we would expect to see in the spring and summer
Okay, so
months.
do you think that the events, let's talk about Disney particularly. Do you think that uh maybe Mickey's Not So Scary as well as the Christmas what's the Christmas celebration called down there?
Which part?
Magic Kingdom.
the Trying to think of the name of it now too. You got me on that one.
Anyway, but do you think those events maybe are more marketed towards people like your family that would go more than once? Like, we go in the summer and then, "Oh, we gotta go back to see Not So Scary," or whatever.
Yeah, I think so. I think they wanna target to the families that are gonna come back a couple times a year, for sure.
But also that kinda plays into what I was saying earlier, in which, um, like Universal had a slight Christmas overlay. It had Christmas trees around and stuff. But Disney, again, takes a different route, and, all their shows are Halloween or Christmas themed, and, everything is decorated, and it's got, uh, Christmas merchandise and so on. So it's funny how 2 different routes are taken for those 2 places, you know?
Yeah, well, you got an older crowd too that's gonna go to Universal than you were will Disney with the
Mhm.
families, so I think that's part of it. Um, but yeah, but I mean, if you want families to come down, more than once, you wanna have them experience something different, so there's a reason to come more than once every 12 months.
Yeah, and I think that that's, you do walk a fine line, though, because I think that if you have a centerpiece, whether it's your, in Kings Island's case, it's the Eiffel Tower or whatever, if you painted that a different color, there could be a negative reaction to, "That's not my k t" g the problem is that some of these parks really do belong to the people, regardless of the legality behind anything. It's the people that keep on coming back that really are the equity holders in these parks. So, dressing it up seasonally is one thing, but changing it permanently is almost something you need a referendum on, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
All right. So one of the events that every Christmas event has, and one of the activities that every Christmas event has is ice skating. So Don, you've worked at like more ice rinks than I can count on one hand. How does the condition of the ice at an arena compare to the condition of the ice at like these parks for the outdoor stuff?
Well, I mean, I think you're talking, the professional, arenas where, that you're gonna play on the NHL or the American Hockey League or the ECHL's playing on, it's not gonna be that quality of ice, but if you're talking about, um, community rinks, uh, you know, these measure up very well, with those experiences, skating. I can say without hesitation, some of the winter events, those outdoor skating rinks that I have, skated on, the ice is much better than some of the ice that I've played hockey games on, and in some of the, facilities, throughout the Midwest that I've played in. So, very impressed, with the ice. And I think when it gets a little bit colder, the ice is even better. You want the ice to be hard. It's a little bit faster then. And so, they do a great job, the parks and maintaining the ice surfaces and, keeping them in great shape. You get, hundreds of
Right.
people a night skating on them. Uh, but, it's the ice is great, and if I'm just gonna go out for a skate, you know, you're gonna find better ice at some of these, Christmas events around the country than you're gonna find at your local ice
Yeah.
rinks.
And well, what's funny is that weather does really affect it. You mentioned that the colder it gets, the better the condition of the ice is. Of course, one thing that is kind of like a blessing in disguise is that it's typically very busy. And I've noticed that, especially kids that are learning to skate, which is probably a population of 20% of the people on the ice. When there's a half inch of snow, it's easier to kind of walk on skates and work your way up to skating. That's I've only done it once or twice that I can think of at a theme park, but I think it's gonna become a tradition because it was a really, really fun time. Um,
Yeah, but I highly recommend that though. If anyone, even if you're not, you don't skate much, or you've never skated before, they've all got these little, things that you can hold on to skate around the ice with. Definitely do it. It really adds to the experience when you can get out on the ice and you look around, you see all, just all the lights and the buildings and, the atmosphere, at a park, definitely
yeah,
give skating a
especially,
try.
shout out to both Kings Island and Kings Dominion for the skating is on the fountain, which is the coolest thing ever. You know? Um, I actually, like I said, I got to skate, I think it was the day before Christmas Eve, so it was kind of an exciting time anyway. But that's one of my best memories from, from Christmas last year is doing that. It was me, my girlfriend, another friend of mine and his son was 5 at the time. He didn't know how to skate at the beginning, and he was, like, checking people into the boards by the end, and it was so fun. Yeah, I definitely do that.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of room to roam too, and that's another good thing about, these rinks at the, Christmas events, these outdoor rinks. You have
Mhm.
they're longer, usually a little wider than what you're gonna find at your local
Yeah.
indoor
Do they,
rinks.
like, for Christmas events in general, this is a general ice question, I guess, but for outdoor rinks, when they're not open for, a week or whatever, do they stay frozen or do they save the electricity?
Oh, yeah, they stay frozen. Yeah, they stay frozen. You still have to maintain it. You still have to run the Zamboni around every day. You still have to cut the ice. So, yeah, I mean, the same maintenance goes into it whether you're open during the week or you're not open during the week. You just can't let
What
it sit
happens
there.
if I guess it does it get pillared or something if you, don't run the Zamboni? I guess if it rains or anything, that would affect it, and
Yeah, it'll affect it if it rains, if it snows, you don't want the rain and that to freeze, on the ice. And if it does, you have to, make sure when you're going with the Zamboni that you're actually cutting it,
you'd
cutting the
probably cut
ice.
it more than
You're not
once
just
with the
resurfacing
ones.
it. You're cutting it. Yeah, exactly. So you want to keep it the same kind of level that you have. You want to keep it even. So you don't want to have you start to get ruts and uneven ice if it rains and you don't do anything about it. And it hasn't been
Mhm.
open for 4 or 5 days, between uh open to the public. So you want to make sure that you're doing that maintenance every day on it. You have better
Yeah.
consistency that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've always been fascinated by ice rink, maintenance, shall we say. I
Yeah. But the equipment out there, I mean, they put them out there in, California, Texas, everywhere else now with these outdoor rinks. They're able to make ice, anywhere now.
yeah. I've always wondered, like, I wonder about things that nobody else cares about, but I've always wondered, like, if you turn this fountain into an ice rink, what's the electricity cost per hour on that? But, I mean, stuff is so efficient now that maybe it's not that bad, you know? Um, but it's
But, we talked about technology improving. There's another thing, what
mhm.
the ice rink was, in 1982 to what it is today at a Kings Island. It's definitely a different, way of making the
Yeah,
ice
I
than they
mean,
had
well,
back
look
then.
at most ice rinks that are in existence, and they're from before 1982. Let's forget about like bigger NHL arenas and stuff because they're all within 20 years old. But I would say, like, your local rink is built in the 50s or 60s. Like, let's be honest with you. Look at the quality of the ice there compared to something that was built in the last 10 years or so. Because
Yeah.
doesn't it have like some of them have like a sand base and stuff, and now they're doing
Mhm.
concrete bases, which is a little bit better and more even.
Concrete bases, sand
Yeah.
bases, yeah. But, no, shout out to all the people out there, throughout, the country that, at the parks that have ice rinks, the job that you do, maintaining the rinks because, everywhere I've skated outdoors at a theme park, the ice conditions, it's been phenomenal.
At
It's been great.
IAPA, we saw, that fake ice. Did we ever talk about this on the show? I can't remember. So, right across from the
No, no.
attractions group booth was this company that had, like, the fake ice that's, like, plastic. And, they hired these, skaters from I guess they were from the one was from New Hampshire because Don, of course, went and talked to her, but, they came down to perform in SeaWorld's ice skating show, and they skated around in circles and did little twirls and stuff for 15 minutes, and they switched up, and then the other one skated around and but that guy was saying, like, he just like, there's so many people interested, and because you gotta think, you put that stuff down, whether it's a lease or it's a purchase or whatever, I'm not really sure. I think he was in the business of leasing, but you don't have to Zamboni it. You don't have to keep it frozen. You don't really have to maintain it, to my knowledge. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff you have to do, but not like an ice rink. And, the girls that were skating were like, "Yeah, it feels pretty much like ice."
Yeah, when I was talking to them about it, what's the difference for them, going from ice to this, plastic synthetic surface, and, so you can do a lot
Mhm.
of the same moves that you do on the ice, but it's the stopping, you can't come to as hard of a stop. So for someone like me that played hockey, it would be a struggle to be going like full speed and then all of a sudden, have to stop on a dime on something like that. But if you're just going to skate around like a public skate kind of thing, it can work for that, but you're not going to want to use it for any kind of um,
Yeah, I
game use
mean,
or anything like
I'm not
that, or any
advocating
kind of
for
like
the
skating
NHL to
competition,
switch
like
to it.
figure skating competitions or anything like that. But no, but I mean, but if you're just trying to have something, you're setting up in a parking lot or something like that with a little winter event, that can
Yeah,
work for you to put down
right,
that
and
kind of a
I
sheet.
remember doing it in a shopping mall, probably 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, they called it glice. I remember that distinctly. There was glice skating. Um, I
Hmm.
don't know if this is the same technology or not, but I remember, like, the lateral forces were really bad, and it probably ties back into your stopping thing, because I remember that skating on that compared to skating on ice, like, your blades wanted to push outward because they couldn't get a grip into the surface. But that would also, I mean, that's how you stop too, so you would.
Yeah. Now, what we saw at IAPA, we're gonna use that
Mhm.
word technology again, a lot different than what I saw 10 or 15 years ago, um, with the artificial ice, where it
Yeah,
was a lot thicker. So this one allowed you to do more of the natural skating moves on it than what you could have done 10 or 15 years
yeah,
ago on those.
absolutely. Yeah, the ice skating's fun, and then some have snow tubing, and, it's always fun to have these activities, and, you can ice skate all year in most places in the country. There's always somewhere, but to ice skate at a theme park, that's special. That's a completely different beast.
It is. It is. Well, Ryan, when you look at these Christmas events, what's the one ride that you associate a theme park Christmas event with?
I would say first place would be a train, because trains are associated with Christmas, and I'm not entirely certain why, but they are. Carousel would be in second place, but not even a close second place, I don't think. I don't really think carousel and think Christmas as much, but I would be surprised if there wasn't a carousel. That's the conundrum I'm in. But,
I think carousel for me because it has, especially when you see them, when they're decorated with the lighting and that
right.
for the Christmas season, it's like that Hallmark moment when you take a picture kind of a thing of it. So it does to me get associated with the Christmas event, but
Yeah,
train for sure. You're always thinking train and Christmas are always
yeah, I
synonymous with
mean,
each
well,
other.
so carousel also came to mind, for the reasons that you're saying, like, where it's, like the Hallmark thing of the guy and will they, won't they guy and girl get together at the end, and they ride the carousel together for, we all have a Merry Christmas, that sort of thing. Um, but the thing though is there are holiday train displays all over the place, and there's never like a freestanding carousel for Christmas. That's why I kind of put it down a few pegs under the train. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, but it's definitely for me. It's the train's number one, and then a close second is the carousel, and then every other ride's distant third behind those two.
Yeah. What's your favorite, like, type of Christmas show that theme parks offer? Like, big umbrella, but, do you like the Christian stuff, or do you like the elves, or do you like, traditional Christmas songs, or, like, what's your favorite kind of show?
Well, I like the story driven,
Yeah.
type
Mhm.
shows. I like those. But I like the ones too that feature a lot of the traditional, Christmas classic kind of music.
Right.
Those songs, those things that are identifiable. I like those. But if there's a show that's it's kind of a story driven show, I'm all about that.
I like it when they integrate different stuff out. So, okay. So, you've got, like, the whole, like, nativity and so on. So you've got that's one category. And then you've got, mistletoe and, all the traditional Christmas stuff that's come over time. So that's a different category. And then there's the oddly over sexualized part of Christmas with Santa baby and all that stuff. Um, but I really like that a lot of parks are doing stuff with, like, Charles Dickens. I think that's really fun.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Those are fun, and I like the shows where the audience
Yes.
becomes part of the show or can be part of the show. I think that's important is to have that kind of interaction. And you see a lot of that at the different parks that I've been to for Christmas
Yeah,
events.
yeah, that's always enjoyable. Another thing, by the way, that kinda comes to mind that every park should have actually, that's probably something we should do, like, what are the if you were gonna start a you have a theme park, alright? Not necessarily an unlimited budget, but a reasonable budget. What are, like, the top 5 things you have to have? Because we definitely have ice skating on that list. You know what else I would put on that list? Petting zoo. Petting zoo.
Petting zoo, yes. You always associate, those animals, with the Christmas season. You know, the camels and
Well, and
those kinda
then the other
animals.
one that from our conversation we would say is live shows, but, for example, the Festival of Lights at the Cincinnati Zoo doesn't really have live shows. So is that on the list or not? For a theme park, it might be.
I think you have to have the live shows. It's gotta be a
Okay,
part
so
of the
let's
mix.
say let's put live shows in. So 2 more. Well, light displays too. Yeah, you
Gotta
gotta have
have
lights, and
lights.
then what's the last one?
Not the holiday
Right.
season without lights, right? And you gotta have the big
Yep.
Christmas tree.
You have to have a big memorable Christmas tree that has plenty of photo options.
That's the tone setter. That's the tone setter right there is that Christmas tree. It's the heartbeat of your event, no matter where it is. If it's in the front of the park, if it's in the back of the park, wherever it is, you gotta have a big
So I know
Christmas
that
tree.
when Winterfest was the first seasonal theme park events involving Christmas, according to lore. And I'm saying that because I haven't researched that, but it's pretty widely accepted when it launched in like what 82, I guess.
Yeah.
So friend of mine, friend of yours too, Bill Mefford, who was PR at the time, said that, they made money and stuff, but their primary focus was they were giving back to the community and creating visibility for season pass sales and things like that. Um, do you think that for a lot of well, not even that, not even just parks, but let's say zoos too, because zoos seem to do the Festival of Lights thing. Do you think that there is a lot of opportunity to generate revenue for that, or is it like the long game? If we offer Festival of Lights, and so they're more likely to buy the family pass to the zoo. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think 40 years ago, I think that would have been, to give back to the community. Let's just, you know, do this so we can kind of position ourselves to sell more, passes for the next season, that kind of a thing. But now it's a big part of it's like Haunt, the Halloween season, all those different Halloween events. It's a big part of your business. So, it's definitely changed from what it would have been, what the purpose of it might have been, back in the 80s to what it is today. I mean, now it is a major event, it is a major undertaking. You have teams that's all they work on for the whole year is getting ready for the Christmas events at these parks. So it's definitely evolved. It's definitely a big piece of
Yeah,
the
so
puzzle.
I think that the big thing that always like gets me is that you go, in August you go to a park and it's a park. By mid-September, it's completely overlaid with Halloween stuff. And most parks put out a lot of Halloween stuff. And then the whatever team, and it's probably the same team at most parks, has to take all that stuff down and then put up all the Christmas stuff. And then when Christmas is over, come January 1st, in the worst weather possible, they've got to take all that stuff down again. And then who knows what they have to do? Sometimes some parks open up with a spring celebration or whatever. It's I can't believe that the teams aren't hundreds deep doing that. I know that it's a collaborative effort, but isn't that incredible that you got the whole overlay for Haunt, and then a few weeks later it's a much bigger overlay for Christmas.
Yeah, a lot of work is involved, and like you said, it's big teams now. I can remember, back in the 80s, the team that was putting together Winterfest might have been, 15, 20 people on a decor team, putting all that up. And now you have so much, more involvement in that. Um, the entertainment offerings, are much deeper than they were before. You might have seen two or three live shows, and now you're going to see anywhere from like 12 to 20 shows depending on what park you're at. So it's just a lot more involved, much more immersive than ever was before. And when you look at it too, I mean, most of them open 4 or 5 o'clock at night. They close at 10. I mean, it is hard to get everything in one night. You just can't do it. So you got to come back a couple other times to
That's
make
a
sure that
lesson
you
I
got
learned
everything.
this year, especially after the first night, and I was like, I've done 3 things. you know?
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's a good
oh,
thing, though. I
yeah.
mean, it's a good thing to have, so much to see and so much to do that, you wanna come back a second or, third time to these events to make sure that you see it. I mean, you wanna try the food, you wanna watch the shows, you do probably wanna ride a couple of the rides, you wanna check out all the lights and all the holiday decor, and you wanna go shopping. That's another thing we haven't even
Right,
touched on is the shopping. I mean, just, there a lot of the stores at these parks, they have stores just dedicated, with different, holiday items, ornaments, home decor, things to put out in your yard. I mean, it's just a totally different atmosphere, a totally different season than any other time of the year that you're
yeah,
going to go
and
to these
what's
parks.
funny is I feel like the, mentality behind, the parks has changed quite a bit, because big parks are, a year-round thing, because even when it closes, at the end of the year, you spend the next 3 months anticipating the next one, and that's, like, because of the advent of social media and stuff, so it's not out of sight ever out of mind ever. So, I remember, knowing families where it's like, "Oh, what'd you get for Christmas?" "Oh, I got my gold pass." And it's like, "Well, why would you get that? You can't even use it for 6 months." But nowadays,
Right.
"Oh, this model of this, roller coaster train or whatever is a completely viable gift idea." That I feel like, it's, the theme parks are far more woven into the fabric of the community now than they were, before the advent of social media.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
true.
What's your favorite, like, gift idea for a theme park lover?
It's got to be
Well,
the season pass. And I go back to that because in the 80s, that was my annual gift from my parents, was a Kings Island season pass. And then, we added on to that and got me passes to some other chains too, toward the end of the 80s. But Um, that was the gift that kept on giving, the whole year through. So, for me, that's the number one
yeah, I
gift
mean,
idea.
it's definitely a good gift idea, but it's funny because that's changed too. Because remember when season passes went on sale for Christmas or even in the spring?
Mhm.
Nowadays, you're getting
Oh,
pestered
yeah.
about buying or renewing your pass in August. So I can't randomly go up to somebody and renew their pass or buy them a pass for the next year because they may already have it, you know?
They might. They might already have it, but, I was just thinking of me individually, what it was about and, what I remembered,
Yeah, I
the most
remember,
about it.
it's fun like, we were, there were 2 types of families when I was younger, and Don, you can probably relate to this pretty well, but there was Americana families and there was Kings Island families growing up, all right? Americana families where like, the parents, like, they would do this once a year because, like, it'll shut you up, like, and that was absolutely my parents. And then the Kings Island families, often even then were season pass holders, but the parents were, like, into it more, you know? Um, but I remember growing up, as soon as I was, like, old enough to do it, I used to cut my grandma's grass, and she'd pay me $10. And right around the time when Kings Island would open for the season, I'd have enough money to buy my pass. You start cutting in March or so, and then, toward the end
Mhm.
of April, it would be maybe it wasn't opening day, but it was, that I didn't care at the time. But that's how I would always get my pass. I mean, nowadays they've got payment plans and buy now, pay later, and several different tiers and options and stuff. I mean, fortunately, it works out well for somebody that goes often, because you can choose what you're going to do. If I've got a friend that is going to come to the park 2 or 3 times a year, it's like we just get the basic pass. But oh, are you also going to go to this other park on the chain? Well, you got to upgrade. Like, oh, you're going to spend 100 visits there? Well, then you gotta upgrade again, Oh, it's just crazy. I don't know, if you were gonna add another holiday in for a major event at a theme park, what would it be? That one that's not explored currently?
Yeah. I don't know, I mean, are there any that haven't been explored?
Well, not on a grand scale because, the one that's always come to mind smack in the middle of every park's off season is Valentine's Day. I don't think any park does anything with that, but you could ruffle some feathers with that, I imagine. You could have your characters come out and give Valentines, and I don't know. You know, I'm not a creative guy, I'm a numbers guy.
Well, I think a lot, you'd have to be a park that's open, year round to really be able to take advantage of some of those earlier ones that happen, in February and, even March and April to that degree. A lot of them aren't even open yet. So, um, but I think the core ones are covered. You've got the Halloween season, you got the Christmas season, so I think those are the two big
Yeah,
ones.
and then, I've noticed that 4th of July is less of a big deal now with the parks because I remember they used to do fireworks for 5 nights or whatever, and now it's just like, "All right, we'll shoot some rocks in the air," on the 4th of July, and that's pretty much it. Um, and that's nationwide, I feel like. I don't
Well, I think, nowadays, the last 10 or 15 years, every neighborhood, is doing some kind of a fireworks display. So I think it's too readily
yes.
available for people now than what it was, back in my day, I guess you could say, where you had to go to a park to see the a fireworks show over the 4th of July. So now it's you don't have to drive far from your house to
Right,
go see them.
I completely agree with that, and it's also, like, Y I mean, feeding into what you were saying, there's so much going on that you're competing, so you have really 2 options. You can try to put on the biggest, baddest celebration ever, in which if it rains, you lose a ton of money, or you can just kind of surrender those 2 days of the 3rd and the 4th and then, get them the next week, which I don't necessarily disagree that that's probably the better business decision. Now, I wish every park would do a lot.
Yeah, well, that's where too that you do some different things around the 4th of July. In addition to your fireworks, you want to have some kind of 4th of July themed food, it's available that's not there any other time of the year. I think that always helps to bring in guests, especially the ones that are there,
Right.
frequently. They need another reason to come besides fireworks. So maybe you do something like that.
You could always do more fireworks, that's a reason to come. I'm a big firework fan. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I think so too, and I don't think it's necessarily that the importance of the 4th of July, has gone down in the eyes of the American people. In fact, I would say otherwise based on the fact that every neighborhood has a firework display. Um, but they are readily available. Um, if you were to put on a big, big show, first of all, a normal fireworks show that's 7 to 10 minutes ain't gonna cut it. You're not gonna draw anybody with that. So you'd have to do something bigger and better, and that gets really expensive really, really quickly, So, and again, if it rains, you still gotta pay everybody. No one's there.
that's right.
All right, Don, do you have any final words of wisdom or any thoughts? You wanna shout out the Buckies even though they're not sponsoring us yet, or
Oh my gosh, Bucky's is I had an opportunity to see Bucky was out and decked out for the
Mhm.
Christmas holiday. Got a photo with him, a selfie with him. So that was a big moment for me being able to
Was it
get that a
disappointing to
couple
meet
weeks
your
ago.
hero?
No, no, no. They always say don't meet your heroes, but I took my chances and I'm glad I
I
did.
mean, I
It's a
guess
moment
if
I'll
your
never
hero is a
forget.
beaver, I mean, that's more on you than it is on the beaver. That's true.
Yeah, exactly with that. But Ryan, it's that holiday season. Make sure you know you get out, visit the parks that are having these events. Just soak up the season, have some fun, and we don't get a chance to hear us over the next couple weeks. We want to take the time to wish you and your family, a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and
Okay, to be
thanks
clear
for
though,
listening.
we have some awesome shows coming up. We do. To be
We
clear, we are
do,
gonna do
we
some
do.
awesome shows. We got a really exciting guest next week. I'm not gonna say who it is. You have to follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP to find out. But yes, absolutely. Merry Christmas. Once again, thank you all for those of you who take the time to listen to this and to provide us feedback and comment on our stuff and like our tweets and watch our videos and so on. So thank you so much. The merriest of Christmas to you. And we'll see you next week. All right. Signing off.